All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our BCBA exam practice questions series, where we're going through the next set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Make sure you check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. As always, when you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. Zach receives $1 based on his reinforcement schedule that provides him reinforcement after 5 minutes. Zach has learned the schedule and will wait until 5 minutes is over to respond to any questions. What can you do to increase Zach's responding? We're looking at a basic reinforcement schedule here. And although we do need to know compound schedules for the exam, compound schedules are made up of basic schedules and you have to know those basics. So here we've got a very basic reinforcement schedule which appears to be an interval schedule. Why is it an interval schedule? Well, it's based on time. Zach is getting $1 based on his schedule, and he gets that reinforcement after 5 minutes. So we can assume we're looking at some sort of fixed interval 5-minute schedule. What has Zach done? Well, one of the problems with the fixed schedules is they are predictable, and Zach has learned the schedule. So he knows I can respond after 5 minutes, and then I can wait a full another 5 minutes before responding again. There's no point in me responding until 5 minutes is up. So he's learned the schedule, and now he's only responding after 5 minutes is over. So his rate of responding has gone down, assumingly dramatically. What can we do to increase Zach's responding? Since he's figured out the fixed interval schedule, what can we do in response? A, lengthen the fixed interval to 10 minutes. Lengthening the schedule is only going to do what? Well, it's only going to make the problem worse because now he's not going to respond for 10 minutes, and we want to increase his responding. B, switch to a fixed ratio schedule. Now, a fixed ratio schedule would force him to respond more, but it's still fixed. Meaning, let's say we switch to a fixed ratio 3. Zach could respond 3 times, get reinforcement, and then he could wait as long as he wanted to respond 3 times again. So instead, we could switch to a variable interval schedule and make it unpredictable. This way, reinforcement is delivered on an average amount of time, where Zach cannot predict or learn when that reinforcement is coming. Therefore, he must keep responding in order to gain reinforcement. Because if we switch to a variable interval 5 minutes, he might get reinforcement after 3 minutes. He might get reinforcement after 8 minutes. It would all be on an average. So in order to increase Zach's responding, we could go from this fixed schedule to a variable interval schedule. A teacher starts to use a response cost procedure each time a child tries to escape an assigned task. The response cost procedure involves the teacher removing a star from the student's star chart. The response cost procedure is effective at reducing task avoidance, but the teacher is not teaching a replacement behavior. What is likely to happen if the teacher stops the response cost procedure now? All right, a couple things to consider here. First, what is the question asking about? It's asking about stopping the response cost procedure. So we know the teacher is using the response cost procedure when the child tries to escape. However, even though the response cost is effective, the teacher is not teaching a replacement. So let's start with the response cost. Response cost, by definition, is a negative punishment procedure. We're removing an earned reinforcer. So by definition, response cost is a negative punishment procedure. Now, with that in mind, when we're going to work to reduce a behavior, which is escape the assigned task, what must we do? When we take away a behavior, we've got to replace it with the functionally equivalent behavior. That's called the fair pair rule, right? So the teacher is effectively reducing task avoidance, which is great, but she's not teaching anything to replace it. And so what is an issue with punishment? Well, an issue with punishment is it's not permanent, meaning punishment does not teach the right behavior, it only reduces the wrong behavior. So if you stop punishment, the wrong behavior is likely to come back unless you taught a replacement. So if this teacher stops the response cost procedure now, what is likely to happen? A, task avoidance will remain decreased. Well, that's unlikely. She hasn't taught anything instead, she's just punished it. If the punishment goes away, Well, that behavior is likely to just come back. B, task avoidance will increase back to prior levels. That's much more likely if the teacher stops the punishment and doesn't teach anything else, because the kid never learned another way to get out of the task or get a break or engage in task avoidance or get out of a task they didn't want to do. They never learned any other way. And so if we stop punishing this escape behavior, it's likely to just come back because no other behavior was taught. C, students will start to engage in aggression. Well, if she stops the punishment, it's unlikely punishment-induced aggression will start, right? Punishment-induced aggression is a result of the punishment. Stopping the punishment won't lead to that. And then D, spontaneous recovery is likely to occur. What's wrong with D? Well, be careful about answers like D, because spontaneous recovery has nothing to do with punishment. Spontaneous recovery is an extinction idea. So be very careful about mixing up ideas and terminology. Spontaneous recovery you should not even consider. We're not talking about extinction here at all. So if this teacher were to stop the response cost procedure now, task avoidance would likely increase back to prior levels. Wilson and his brother think it's funny to bark at each other like dogs. They do it even though it annoys their parents and their sister. Today, Wilson barked at his teacher and was sent to detention. What does Wilson's behavior most represent? So looking at Wilson's behavior, and we know Wilson and his brother bark at each other like dogs because they think it's funny and it annoys their family, right? So just kid behavior. However, today, Wilson barked at his teacher and was sent to detention. That's an issue, right? Because Wilson, when he's with his brother, they can bark at each other. They think it's hilarious. They're at home. They annoy their parents and sisters. But he now goes to school and he gets in trouble. He gets sent to detention. What has happened here? A, generalization. Yes, he has, or Wilson's behavior has generalized from wherever it's occurring with his brother and his parents to now to his teacher. Do we pick A and move on? We don't. We read every answer choice. We want the best answer, the answer that most describes what his behavior represents. So B, overgeneralization, is a much better characterization of what's occurring. Generalization is just saying the behavior is happening in different environments in the presence of different stimuli. Overgeneralization is saying the behavior is happening in inappropriate times, in inappropriate settings, and too much. That's what's happening with Wilson's behavior. It's happening at the wrong time. He can't be barking at his teacher like he does his brother. And then maintenance. Maintenance always assumes we've taught the skill. So if you're going to pick maintenance, make sure we're talking about teaching a skill and then stopping teaching a skill. In this case, yes, Wilson's behavior generalized, but we're looking for the most, right? And the most representative answer choice is over generalization. And you might say, well, that's being very picky. It is. You want to be picky on the exam. You need the best, most precise answer. Satiation of a reinforcer would most likely have what type of effect for your client? Let's think about satiation. And when you think about satiation, think of deprivation. These two ideas have to do with motivating operations. With satiation, you've gotten too much of something. You're tired of something. The motivation to gain that thing has gone down. Think about if you eat 4 slices of pizza. You're likely going to be satiated on that pizza and are just not going to want to eat any more pizza. Deprivation is the opposite. Let's say you haven't had pizza for 3 weeks. Well, maybe now you've been deprived, you haven't gotten it, and the desire and the motivation to get the pizza has increased. With that said, if you satiate on a reinforcer, what's going to happen? Well, if you're satiated on a reinforcer, you've got too much of it, right? You're no longer motivated to earn it. So satiation of a reinforcer would have what type of effect for the client? A, an increase in value for the reinforcer and an increase in behavior to gain the reinforcer. Satiation is not going to increase the value. Satiation means the value has decreased due to overexposure. So A is out. B, a decrease in value for the reinforcer. Okay. And an increase in behavior to gain the reinforcer. Well, no, if the value is down, behavior is not going to increase to gain. B is out. C, an increase in value for the reinforcer. We can eliminate that one, right? Because satiation is not increasing the value. So we move to D, a decrease in value for the reinforcer. Good. And a decrease in behavior to gain the reinforcer. Good. Remember, motivating operations affect the consequences, and they temporarily affect the behavior. If the motivating operation decreases the value of the consequence, then the behavior to gain that consequence is likely to decrease. So satiation of a reinforcer would most likely have what type of effect for your client? D, a decrease in value for the reinforcer, and a decrease in behavior to gain the reinforcer. Juliet has a beautiful voice and loves to sing, but she often sings frequently throughout the day, which disrupts other parts of her life. Her boyfriend tells her that if she sings less than 4 times every 4 hours, he will take her to dinner. What type of differential reinforcement procedure does this likely represent? Now, with differential reinforcement questions, we always ask ourselves first, are we teaching a replacement behavior? If we are teaching a replacement behavior in a differential reinforcement question, then we can narrow our answer choices down to DRAs or DRIs. Alternative behaviors are incompatible because DRHs, DRDs, DRLs, and DROs do not teach replacements. So ask yourself, are we teaching replacements? Juliet has a beautiful voice, loves to sing, but she sings frequently throughout the day, which disrupts her life. Her boyfriend says, sing less, I'll take you to dinner. Is he teaching a replacement behavior? He's not. He likes the singing. The singing is beautiful. He wants it to happen less. So we can immediately eliminate DRAs and DRIs, which in this case, differential reinforcement of alternative behavior, D, is out. So now we have higher rates, diminishing rates, and other. Well, with DROs and differential reinforcement of other behaviors, when do we reinforce? We reinforce in the absence. So if we were running a DRO here, the boyfriend would only reinforce Juliet when she wasn't singing. But that's not the case here, right? He's looking for her to sing less than a set criterion, okay? Since we have a set criterion and a set interval, it can either be DRD or DRL because we're reducing it. Why is it not A? Why is it not higher rates? Because with higher rates, we're trying to increase the behavior. Here, we're trying to reduce the behavior. We're looking at a diminishing or a lower rate. And since we only can choose diminishing rates, then B must be our answer. What are some characteristics of verbal behavior according to Skinner? All right, a little fluency, kind of learning question here, kind of a refresher, right? We're learning, okay? So Skinner obviously has his verbal behavior, which we teach in ABA, and there are certain characteristics to verbal behavior. So A, verbal behavior is reinforced by socially mediated contingencies. Yes, according to Skinner's verbal behavior, there's a speaker and a listener, right? And the speaker's behavior is reinforced by socially mediated contingencies. A looks good. B, verbal behavior is defined by its form and not its function. What do you think about B? Well, do we define verbal behavior by how it looks and how it sounds, or by what purpose it serves? Well, of course, by what purpose it serves. So B is not true. C, verbal behavior does not need to be spoken. Now, what verbal behavior might not be spoken? What about sign language? What about pictures? What about alternative communication devices? There are many ways to communicate verbally that aren't vocal. Verbal and vocal are two different things. So, according to Skinner, verbal behavior is reinforced by socially mediated contingencies, and verbal behavior does not need to be spoken. So the answer here would be D, both A and C. Thank you for watching. Please check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Subscribe if you haven't already. Let us know when you pass your exam so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.